These are the latter days.
In the coming day, Jesus Christ will return to the earth as the millennial Messiah, or the second coming.
The mandate given by the First Presidency and the presiding bishopric is to only focus on financial growth. EPA employees are told that the money will be used after the second coming of Jesus Christ or during Armageddon right before he would come again.
One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming.
Nothing against Saudi Arabia. I do a lot of business with Saudi Arabia. I think they're great. They're wonderful. They buy my apartments. They pay me a fortune.
Never before seen details of the Trump Tower meeting that Donald Trump Jr. attended months before the election with a Russian lawyer who now admits to being a Russian informant.
It's oftentimes I'm getting ready to do my...
U.S. President Donald Trump gave his clearest admission yet on Sunday that the purpose of the meeting between son Don Jr. and a Kremlin-connected lawyer before the 2016 presidential election was to get dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
In the case of Facebook here, we should point out that it is now saying that 126 million Americans might have been exposed to these Russian news-generated sites. To tech analyst Shana Glenzer, and what she makes of that. What do you make of that? That's a pretty big number.
No, it's a large number, especially in consideration of the number of Americans that headed to the polls this past fall to cast their votes. But what I think you're going to see from Facebook and what you've seen from Twitter is that they're trying to minimize some of those numbers by saying, look, the amount of dollars that were actually spent on advertising that from these foreign agents was actually was really a drop in the bucket compared to what's being spent on a daily basis.
We turn now to new allegations about a data firm tied to President Trump's 2016 presidential election. The firm is called Cambridge Analytica, and on Friday, Facebook suspended its parent company. The reason given by Facebook? It said Cambridge Analytica lied when it said it had deleted information about several 100,000 users. But multiple reports, including an investigation by Channel 4 in the UK, suggest that the scope of what happened here is far broader.
Another central figure in the special counsel probe is being accused of sharing information with an associate who may have ties to Russian intelligence. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Harridge has the latest on that tonight. New trouble for Paul Manafort and the unusual way we found out about it today. Good evening, Catherine.
Well, that's right, Brett, and good evening. A glitch in the court filing allowed the redacted portions to be read, revealing that the special counsel has alleged Paul Manafort reached out to a business associate and shared polling data related to the 2016 election. The business associate, Konstantin Kalimnik, is widely described as a Russian-Ukrainian political consultant and suspected intelligence operative. Kalimnik has previously denied ties to Russian intelligence.
BuzzFeed News revealed that Michael Cohen's effort to develop a Trump Tower over in Moscow during the election year went on far longer than he publicly acknowledged, extending into the spring of 2016.
I believe Prince Mohammed did know what was going on. Somebody gave the order, and either he gave it or watched it being given to gut Mr. Khashoggi like a fish.
If you want to buy our weapons and integrate your economy into ours, there's a certain price to be paid. Don't chop somebody up in a consulate. That's not too much to ask.
Wow, those are outspoken Republicans. Welcome back to Harbor. That was Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana and, of course, Lindsey Graham, both Republicans, making the case against Saudi Arabia in the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Graham is one of the co-authors of a bipartisan Senate resolution introduced yesterday calling Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, complicit. Actually, that's being nice. I think he ordered it in Khashoggi's murder. President Trump has repeatedly dismissed charges of MBS's role in Khashoggi's death, but a new report has once again raised questions about Trump's vocal defense of the Saudi government and his own financial entanglements with that regime. According to the Washington Post, Saudi-backed lobbyists paid for 500 rooms at the President's Hotel here in Washington just 3 months after the 2016 election.
And would you say a word about what you've seen across the world?
I was in China last week, and there I got to see what a wonderful job President Trump had done just previously. They were filled with hope because of your visit, Mr. President. And I also happened to drop in on an occasion when the Chinese members of the church were bringing supplies for school children who didn't have means of getting what they needed to go to school with.
Right. Well, that was very nice. I heard you were there. Formerly a great heart surgeon, one of the best in the world. And he decided to help even more people by doing what you're doing. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
In China, there is an outbreak of the coronavirus. President Nelson requested that we look at our global partners who may be doing work to help with this outbreak. And one partner came forward, Project Hope, and in their request to us, they specifically asked for masks, goggles, and the coveralls. The supplies that we have here in Salt Lake City in Georgia is exactly what was requested from Project Hope. The church is prepared to send 220,000 masks, 870 goggles, and 6,500 coveralls. We'll have 79 pallets. Our partner, Project Hope, has arranged for a flight to get these items into China. The people of China, specifically Shanghai, where we're sending this equipment, this is going to allow medical professionals to have the personal protective equipment they need to protect themselves, but also these masks will also be given to the general public. We're grateful for the opportunity within Latter-day Saint Charities to support the people of China through the donations of our members.
We are late, so I will just keep it short. For those online who would like to ask questions, please dial 01 on your keypad and you will be put in the queue. As we have announced earlier, and you have the nameplates here with us, we have Dr. Tedros, WHO Director General, Professor Didier Houssin, who is chair of the emergency committee. We have Dr. Mike Ryan, and we have Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove from Department of Diseases and Zoonosis Unit. Mike Ryan is the head of emergencies at WHO. You know, today was the first meeting of the emergency committee on international health regulations on novel coronavirus, and I will give the floor immediately to Dr. Tedros.
And Shanghai, People's Republic of China.
Welcome back to CBS This Morning. It's been nearly 3 months since the first coronavirus case was detected in the U.S. Gail, as the pandemic has grown, medical professionals have quickly experienced shortages of the critical supplies that they need.
And they're talking about it too, Anthony. One emergency room nurse at Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx in New York spoke to 60 Minutes' Bill Whitaker last night. This nurse said it's unacceptable for the richest country in the world to run out of medical equipment.
The mandate given by the First Presidency and the presiding bishopric is to only focus on financial growth. EPA employees are told that the money will be used after the second coming of Jesus Christ or during Armageddon right before he would come again.
The virus that quarantined whole cities in China has now spread to new countries, and fears are growing. Wall Street cratered today as major indexes plunged more than 3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost over 1,000 points to close at 27,960. The Nasdaq fell 355 points, and the S&P 500 dropped 111.
For the first time, we have an idea now of how much the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Big Investment Fund performed over the course of a year.
That fund is called Ensign Peak Advisors, and Fox 13 News investigative reporter Nate Carlisle found the public document showing how many billions of dollars it gained in 2020.
Over the last year, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been more forthcoming about how it's investing tithing money. This latest filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission shows that despite the economic downturn of the pandemic, the church's big investment fund made money. This filing with the SEC shows the holdings of Ensign Peak Advisors at the end of 2020. When added all up, it shows the fund gained more than $6 billion in one of the most difficult financial years in American history.
To my Mormon friends, my Latter-day Saint friends, think of him as Captain Moroni.
I am joined now by the district attorney, the attorney general for the District of Columbia, Carl Racine. He's on the telephone talking with us today. Mr. Racine, are you there?
I'm here, William. Thank you very much.
Very good to have you on the NewsHour. Thank you for talking with us. I wonder if I could just initially get your reaction to what has unfolded here today.
Well, it's several-fold, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. I think Attorney General Barr's message is plain, clear, and here, unquestionably, the truth. What we witnessed today was an American tragedy. It is outrageous. It is devastating. And I would add to former Attorney General Barr's words that it was unlawful, predictable, and encouraged by none other than the President of the United States. And so this is an unprecedented event. Let me talk about the predictability for a moment. We know that these hate groups and militia groups, I'm talking about not the peaceful protesters, but the people who broke police lines and, assaulted the Capitol and left senators and Congress women and men huddled down onto the ground with their gas masks out and ushered onto underground trains for refuge, the same refuge sought by the Vice President of the United States.
In this security footage, you can see Officer Goodman running to respond to the initial breach. Officer Goodman passes Senator Mitt Romney and directs him to turn around in order to get to safety.
We often talk about living in the latter days. We are, after all, Latter-day Saints, but perhaps these days are more latter than we have ever imagined. This truth became a reality for me because of what I experienced during one 24-hour period of time that commenced on June 15th, 2013. My husband and I were in Moscow, Russia. While President Nelson met with priesthood leaders, I had the privilege of meeting with nearly 100 of our sisters.
Punishments that the U.S. is threatening against Russia for their advances into Ukraine don't seem to be having much of an effect. What leverage do you believe you have over President Putin at this point? And is the U.S. concerned primarily about getting Russian forces out of Crimea, or are you also concerned about Russian forces moving into parts of eastern Ukraine?
All of the above. I spent the weekend talking to leaders across Europe, and I think the world is largely united in recognizing that the steps Russia has taken are a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty, Ukraine's territorial integrity, that they're a violation of international law, they're a violation of previous agreements that Russia has made with respect to how it treats and respects its neighbors. And as a consequence, we got strong statements from NATO, from the G7, condemning the actions that Russia's taken.
Senator Brown, I'd like to.
Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A dozen years ago, when you did the tax holiday here, all the corporations had all this money, and of course they were going to be eager to give it out to work. Well, actually, they didn't give it out to workers. They did stock buybacks. They did executive compensation. They paid out in dividends. Then somebody cited Britain. Great Britain has done a series of tax cuts, and their wages were flat too. So this is really wishful thinking. But I do know that the TV ads that are going to be run against the 5 most important senators on this committee, the TV ads that the independent groups will run, will of course say, Senator McCaskill and Senator Casey and Senator Stabenow and Senator Nelson are voting against a $4,000 raise that this tax cut is going to bestow on them. We know it's coming. We know you'll have way more money to promote that than we will have to defend it, but that's why the Wyden Amendment is so important. And I just think it would be nice just tonight, before we go home, to just acknowledge, well, this tax cut really is not for the middle class, it's for the rich. And that whole thing about higher wages, well, it's a good selling point, but we know companies don't just give away higher wages. They just don't give away higher wages just because they have more money. Corporations are sitting on a lot of money now. They're sitting on a lot of profits now. I don't see wages going up. So just spare us the bank shots, spare us the sarcasm and the satire, and
I'm going to spare it, but I'm going to just say to you that I come from the poor people, and I've been here working my whole stinking career for people who don't have a chance. And I really resent anybody saying that I'm just doing this for the rich. Give me a break. I think you guys overplay that all the time, and it gets old. And frankly, you ought to quit it.
Mr. Chairman, the public
wait a minute.
believes it.
Just, I'm not through.
Okay.
I get kind of sick and tired of it. True, it's a nice political play.
Well, Mr.
But
Chairman,
it's not true.
with all due respect, I get sick and tired of the richest people
Regular
in
order,
this country
Mr. Chairman.
getting richer and
Regular
richer
order.
and richer.
Order.
We do a tax
Regular
cut for the
order.
rich and the middle class.
Wait a minute.
rates
Regular order.
and over and over again.
Wait just
How
a
many
second.
times do we do this before we learn this, Mr. Chairman?
Listen, I've honored you by allowing you to spout off here. And what you said was not right. That's all I'm saying. I come from the lower middle class originally. We didn't have anything. So don't spew that stuff on me. I get a little tired of that crap. And let me just say something. If you didn't,
if we work together, we could pull this country out of every mess it's in. And we could do a lot of the things that you're talking about, too. And I think I've got a reputation of having worked together with Democrats.
Let's start with Chip.
Not starting with Chip. I did it. I've done it for years. I've got more bills.
Start with Chip today.
I got more bills passed than everybody on this committee put together. And they've been passed for the benefit of people in this country. Now, all I can say is I like you personally very much, but I'm telling you, this bull crap that you guys throw out here really gets old after a while. To do it right at the end of this was just not right.
Through federal filings, we confirmed the numbers on 12 funds, each with more than one web domain owned by the LDS Church. The funds control about $31.9 billion in investments.
And a major city yet to be determined in Russia.
Good evening, I'm Judy Woodruff. On the NewsHour tonight, invasion. Russian airstrikes bombard Ukraine as ground forces advance on that nation's capital and other cities, forcing civilians to flee for their safety.
Among the most common sexual sins, pregnancy and abortion, all ugly sins, but in and of themselves, they're pernicious evils.
And young women, you are magnifying this problem by becoming pornography.
Have you found Dr. Ford credible?
Well, it's too early to say. I don't think she's uncredible. I think she's an attractive, good witness, but it's way early.
What do you mean by attractive, sir?
Oh, in other words, she's pleasing.
What's your strongest impression so far from what you've heard her say?
I don't have a strong impression from what she says.
How does this compare?
I'll say this, she's attractive and she's a nice person. And I wish her well.
The Supreme Court has just issued, and this is the decision many were waiting for, a ruling in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. This, the major case regarding abortion rights in this country.
Jessica Schneider, who is outside of the court with more. Jessica, what is the opinion from the court?
Poppy and Jim, the court issuing that landmark ruling that this nation has been bracing for, and the Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, that they have eliminated the constitutional right to an abortion. And at first glance, this opinion is very similar to that draft opinion that we saw leaked just about a month and a half ago at the beginning of May.
The guarantee of the free exercise of religion, which I will call religious freedom, is the first expression in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. As noted by many, this preeminent place identifies freedom of religion as a cornerstone of American democracy. The American colonies were originally settled by people who, for the most part, had come to this continent to be able to practice their religious faith without persecution. And their successors deliberately placed religious freedom first in the nation's Bill of Rights. So it is that our national law formally declares, quote, the right to freedom of religion undergirds the very origin and existence of the United States, end of quote. The free exercise of religion obviously involves both the right to choose religious beliefs and affiliations and the right to exercise or practice those beliefs. But in a nation with citizens of many different religious beliefs, the right of some to act upon their religious principles must be qualified by the government's responsibility to protect the health and safety of all. Otherwise, for example, the government could not protect its citizens' person, or property from neighbors whose intentions include taking human life or stealing in circumstances rationalized on the basis of their religious beliefs.
Then Elder Oaks said challengingly, "I'd like to hear a little more musket fire from the Temple of Learning." He said this in a way that could have applied to a host of topics in various departments, but the one he specifically mentioned was the doctrine of the family and defending marriage as the union of a man and a woman. Musket fire? Yes, we will always need defenders of the faith. My brethren have made the case for the metaphor of musket fire, which I have endorsed yet again today. There will continue to be those who oppose our teachings, and that will continue the need to define, document, and defend the faith.
The U.S. Senate has taken an extraordinary step to protect same-sex marriage. In a rare bipartisan vote, the bill will also protect interracial couples. CBS 2's Dick Brennan here now with a reaction. Dick?
Well, Christine, the bill is now one giant step closer to law. Senate lawmakers voted to approve the Respect for Marriage Act, ensuring same-sex and interracial marriages are recognized in every state. The bill was proposed in reaction to the decision overturning Roe v. Wade. In it, Justice Clarence Thomas suggested the court revisit decisions on gay marriage and contraception. But the Respect for Marriage Act managed to attract 12 Senate Republicans to vote for the bill, guaranteeing its passage.
There are 61. The nays are 36. The bill, as amended, has passed.
But in a nation with citizens of many different religious beliefs, the right of some to act upon their religious principles must be qualified by the government's responsibility to protect the health and safety of all. Otherwise, for example, the government could not protect its citizens' person or property from neighbors whose intentions include taking human life or stealing in circumstances rationalized on the basis of their religious beliefs.
Good evening, I'm John Yang. Tonight, months of escalating tensions between Israelis and Palestinians have erupted into a firestorm. In an unprecedented surprise attack, the militant Hamas rulers of Gaza sent dozens of fighters into Israel by land, sea, and air. Gun battles raged for hours in communities across southern Israel, and officials on both sides say Israeli soldiers and civilians are now captives in Gaza.
You are not alone. As long as the United States stands, and we will stand forever, we'll not let you ever be alone. Most importantly, I know the recent terrorist assault on the people of this nation has left a deep, deep wound. More than 1,300 innocent Israelis killed, including at least 31 American citizens by the terrorist group Hamas.
But in a nation with citizens of many different religious beliefs, the right of some to act upon their religious principles must be qualified by the government's responsibility to protect the health and safety of all. Otherwise, for example, the government could not protect its citizens' person or property from neighbors whose intentions include taking human life or stealing in circumstances rationalized on the basis of their religious beliefs.
To everyone at the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, including the FBI, for working nonstop to investigate this heinous act. The FBI is leading the investigation to determine what happened, why it happened, and whether there was any continuing threat to public safety. Here's what we know so far. The FBI has reported to me the killer was an American citizen, born in Texas. He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. He also served in the Army Reserve until a few years ago. The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill, The ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, which he rented to conduct this attack.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
But in a nation with citizens of many different religious beliefs, the right of some to act upon their religious principles must be qualified by the government's responsibility to protect the health and safety of all. Otherwise, for example, the government could not protect its citizens' person or property from neighbors whose intentions include taking human life or stealing in circumstances rationalized on the basis of their religious beliefs.
Jesus Christ will govern from Old Jerusalem and the New Jerusalem, built upon the American continent. Do you see what is happening right before our eyes?
Travis Wayne Goodsell. For the full latter days, I've been researching scriptures, making sure that I check the church news, and you'll notice I do church news videos. I pay attention to our local news, I pay attention to national news, I pay attention to world news, I study histories also look to the future, as well as pay attention to the signs in the heavens. Do the daily stellarium check. And this is from section 88 of the Doctrine and Covenants, verse 78 and 79, even 80, because of the dream I had. Teach ye diligently, and my grace shall attend you, that you may be instructed more perfectly in theory, in principle, in doctrine, in the law of the gospel, Deuteronomy 18, verse 15, in all things that pertain unto the kingdom of God, that are expedient for you to understand, of things both in heaven and in earth and under the earth, things which have been, things which are, things which must shortly come to pass, things which are at home, things which are abroad, the wars and the perplexities of the nations, and the judgments which are on the land, and a knowledge also of countries and kingdoms, that ye may be prepared in all things when I shall send you again to magnify the calling whereunto I have called you, and the mission with which I have commissioned you. Didn't realize he was talking to me. Collecting the history of the people. So yeah, in early February, before I went to Elko, Nevada, for the book signing, during Revelation chapter 12, the flood part near the end. Again, signs in the heavens, the likeness of things on the earth, Joseph Smith translation, Revelation chapter 12, verse 1. It's sad that YouTube can't be designed to assist me with the structure that I need. And now looking back, what I should have done was episodes, so that I title it Episode 1, Episode 555, Episode 666, Episode 8.3K, etc. That probably would have been the best, and so that way people can more quickly find certain videos by the episode. But nonetheless, YouTube sucks, and they think that they know better, they know how to make money, and they don't. They never listen to me, who knows how to make them money. They don't care. They're ordered by the church to hurt me and silence me, and commit crimes against me. So yeah, I've told you about Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other. The matching card game, where you have to remember where certain pictures were and do the matching. And so those helped me develop associative memory, where I'm able to hear, view the news, the conference talks, and scriptures, and be able to match them together. And that's exactly what theory development, verse 78, is all about. You obtain evidence and assemble the evidence logically in Socratic methodology, so that the premises lead to the conclusion. You don't create a conclusion and then force the evidence to reaffirm the conclusion. That's a falsehood called fallacy. You can't do that. And so you can't start with your belief. You have to assemble the facts, let the facts lead you to what the truth is. So you need to run a test after assembling your theory together. And the test has to be performed in different ways so that you can get different confirmations. And if you can get 3 confirmations, you've established truth, called fact. And if it's repeatable through numerous ways, you've now established eternal law. So, law of gravity. I can run the test, you can run the test, others can run the test. It's the same thing each and every single time. We fall to the earth. Now, obviously, there are other factors called anomalies that can be applied, such as putting us in an airplane. We don't fall, per se. Gravity is still in play, though, because we're not able to levitate ourselves in the plane. And if we do, it's because the plane is rocking up and down, knocking us around. But what comes up always comes down because of gravity. It is an eternal law. And it is horrifying that the first creed of Christianity was created in such a manner that it has to deny science, has to deny logic with the Socratic methodology in order for its homusion to be true as not true, because that's what it means. Trinity God is by definition not real, and that's why no real person can ever know God, because he's not real. A real simple thing, and yet over 4 billion people on the earth today are deceived by that. And so that first creed of Christianity was what created spiritual witness feelings, so that mankind can be fooled into a belief, so that the leaders can control them, their actions, their thoughts, their beliefs, to do their will, imposing fear of the punishment of a not real deity, which the punishment's always by the leaders of the church. And so, we have an exodus coming up because of George Albert Smith telling us that there were supposed to be nukes by either Christmas, Hanukkah, or New Year's in the future, as he told a Mormon in October 1947. And with my associative memory and all the videos I've been doing, I knew it was the 2024 election. And it helped that Dallin H. Oaks likewise confirmed it by getting leaked by a mission president in the meeting the 14th of March 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada. And that mission president leaked it in the letter to the missionaries and to parents of the missionaries and to their stake presidents. And one such sister, Jessica missionary, leaked it on her missionary webpage, and Mindy found it, and linked it to another YouTuber. And YouTube's Mormon employee made sure that I was recommended to this faithful Mormon video to prove I'm wrong, and oops. Oopsie. Oopsie. You see, most other people don't have my ability of associative memory. They tend to forget about me. And so they keep making the same stupid mistakes. Oh, Nelson, you gotta hire better assassins. And so I've been reminiscing about the past Exodus videos I've done for you. And in 2020, I was inspired to do the warning that it was the Exodus. And this was the results of doing my research, putting all the facts together, or the evidence together, and thus the facts together after the evidence confirmed facts. And, right, I was supposed to do that, wasn't I? I didn't. It's the Birth of Jesus Christ book that I wrote. So, let's hope that I don't freeze by the terrorism. So, birth, Jesus. Sign of Christ's birth. A new discovery. Paperback or the Kindle version? Relabel it later. They don't merge the Kindle here. What the hell, guys? This was back on March 13th, 2017. And this was published on Amazon. Don't buy it. It's a real simple thing, and we'll go over it. So that you don't have to buy the book. Because it involves 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem. Yeah, nobody's purchased it, so nobody's given it a review. That's okay. Don't pay for my stuff. 8.3K free stuff. Get it from free. Free. Academia. Free. I'm the only one that'll teach you for free. Nobody wants to learn. You know, I tried to get people to learn, advertise that I can teach people Paleo Hebrew and Egyptian and such, but no takers. Nobody's interested. And yet they'll buy or they'll go to the academia stuff. They don't want to learn from the master. Oh well. And so the Book of Mormon says that Lehi left Jerusalem 600 years from 597 BCE. And Mormons don't understand about the learning of the Jews and how they write prophecies and revelations, not literal histories. But a person who doesn't understand that still can run the test as literal history, and they should. They need to find out if the Book of Mormon is literal history, or if it's prophecy and revelation, or if it's just a fraud. You have to run the test. Too many people don't do it. They don't know how. And so they rush to conclusions based upon their preconceived biases, whether it's faith promotion or doubt promotion. And typically you'll have both faith promoters and doubt promoters accuse the others of using a preconceived bias. You're both using it. Stop it. And so that's 4 CE, 600 years. There's no 0 year. And so you add the extra to 4. And so now you got to find out, there's supposed to be a sign in the heavens in 4 CE. And so you can run the test for December 25th, see if Christians are true. You should. I did plus or minus 10 years in both directions. And running the test for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints' claim that it was 6th of April instead of 25th of December. And lo and behold, that one was closer. 8 April, 4 CE. There was a solar eclipse, the sign of Emmanuel, sun god at noonday. Sign of his death. Because the sun, as his sign, happens all the time. But eclipses don't. And so it was significant to find the one on 8 April. And it's tricky to find the Russian city that's in my Stellarium program that will show it, but I found it. And it was over Russia. And then I saw that it was in the constellation of Aries, the Lamb constellation. And so a death of a king, as I had learned by doing my study and research, being the foremost anthropologist of the ancient Middle East, trying to find out if Joseph Smith was true, trying to find out if the scriptures were true. Nobody else was doing it, so I did it. And there's Mercury that's also in conjunction with this sign over Russia, which would have been seen as a smile down in Jerusalem. And so the crescent, I don't think they knew that they didn't know. They call it a moon. It's not quite. You can't have a star in front of a moon, but you can have the moon in front of the sun as an eclipse. Thus, the crescent is the sun, and the star would represent the moon eclipsing it. Take that, communism and Islam. And even Catholics use that in some of their symbolisms. And so, knowing that date, when I learned of the one that was to occur on the the 8th of April, 2024, we got a pattern match. 20 years to the day. But this time, the one in 2024 was on the back of the white horse, Pegasus. Revelation 19, 11, and 17. Scriptures are telling us dates using astronomy. And so the one on 8 April 4 CE, I instantly recognized it with my associative memory and thus did the book. Abraham sacrificing Isaac. Abraham takes his son Isaac. They go up to the top of the mountain, Utah. Isaac says, "Where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Abraham says, "God will provide." They get to the top of the mountain, has the sign in the heavens, and Isaac is then strapped to an altar of rocks. And as literal history, this is horrifying. It's not. And then he's about to sacrifice him. Solar eclipse. A messenger appears. Mercury, the trump of the gods. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. And a ram appears for the sacrifice instead. The Book of Mormon covers this even, talking about the birth of Jesus with the similitude of Abraham sacrificing Isaac. 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem. 8 April 4 CE. But because of the 2020 years, I was able to show and run the test for 2020 being the Exodus year. I had already sued the church before I knew about that, so that part was fulfilled with the Exodus. Suing Pharaoh in Pharaoh's court. And so, yeah, I was looking back. I had to obtain the pictures of the Green River overpass that I was doing the videos for. And so I had first made the picture letting Mormons know that if and when something happens, and there were too many people who were not listening. If and when. Don't go prematurely. And I said, for those of you in Utah, because I knew from my associative memory that Utah was going to be in jeopardy, that there was going to be an enemy attack on Utah. And it was unclear if it would just be the Salt Lake Valley with Temple Square because people are pissed with the church, or if it's the whole of Utah, north and south. But then how far would it go? But nonetheless, I let them know, and I still have the nukes one, because I knew about the nukes. It wasn't just George Albert Smith. I'd said, try to get to the Green River exit. There's a little thing there a little stop, and we can all gather there and then head off on the I-70 to go to Zion in southern Illinois. Because I would eventually find out that it's not Independence, Missouri that we were supposed to go to, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints kept from us Joseph Smith's 19 July 1840, where Joseph Smith specifically tells us, you're wrong. Many of you think it's Independence, Missouri. It's not. That was just going to be another location for another temple, since the headquarters was right there in Independence at the time. You notice that pattern. Headquarters was in Kirtland, so they built a temple in Kirtland. Headquarters was in Independence, Missouri, so he planned on building a temple in Independence, Missouri. Danites went and settled Nauvoo. Joseph Smith got there and said, great, this is now our headquarters, let's get a temple in Nauvoo. Was murdered before it could be built, so Brigham Young finished it and symbolized the assassination of Joseph Smith by the Illuminati. And then put that symbol of the Illuminati on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple headquarters. So Mormons don't get this. They don't understand because of Brigham Young's deceptions. Because if Independence is the headquarters, crowns go on the head. Adam-on-Diamond is above Independence. Now, do you see what Brigham Young was doing? That's why he gave himself the second anointing in the Nauvoo temple in January before it was dedicated on the anniversary of the Illuminati on May 1st. And so I had let Mormons know in 2020. I'm letting Mormons know about my lawsuit against the church and the struggles and the firing of the magistrate justice. How she became a lame duck justice in my case, being threatened by the church to have my case dismissed, or she was going to be punished more severely than she was by getting fired. Yes. If you don't know the history of Brigham Young in this valley when the United States took it over, sending federal officers to fill positions in government, and Brigham Young having them murdered and chased out of his kingdom, they still have this mentality to this day. The government and the church are one. They just appear kind of weakly to not be a part of the same. No, this is our thing. We're not doing it. Yeah, but you're Mormon. The Strengthening Church Members Committee are pressuring you not to go against the prophets. And so, yes, even though the majority of Utahns wanted medical marijuana, the church stepped in and said no. The gay marriage vote, yeah, the church stepped in California's Prop 8 and said, no! We must take away the agency of others. They must conform and comply to our will for them. It's for their own good. Jesus. So, yeah, lots of trauma. Trauma. And so you need to know what the events of the Exodus are if you're going to understand that there's supposed to be an Exodus in the latter days. Joseph Smith himself told you, section 103, which apparently didn't get put in until last year of Brigham Young, because it wasn't in the, let me check, hold on, just a second. Let's see, Mormonism, come follow me. I should continue to expose the errors in the new Doctrine and Covenants manual for you. I already exposed the main one of removing all of the Christ scriptures from it. So now Mormons will never learn about their Christ. And how are you going to come unto Christ if you don't have the discussion of the scriptures in the Doctrine and Covenants about them? Oh my God. So, nope, 1844. And so even though this was given in 1834, Brigham Young put it in the 1844 version of his. He was trying to mix it up, put some section 119, for example, in there. And say, see, Joseph, this is all Joseph's, not mine, not mine. Joseph said, put you in bondage. And I forgot I was going to do that at the beginning. Didn't. So now it's 32 minutes in and I ruined it. So I'll have to save it for another time. With my associative memory, I'm able to see the pattern matching. Brigham Young set up brothels. There was Deadwood Brothel for the TV show, HBO was it, or I think it was HBO. As the West was being colonized, and so brothels were put up, and so Brigham Young had brothels as well because he began polygamy openly in defiance of the United States in anger for them stealing his kingdom. His Danites had already been practicing it in secret, and so his Danites were the first group that came to the valley. The rest of the converts to the wrong name of the church, to the wrong religion, but still framing and blaming Joseph for it, were then gathered in after the United States took possession of the land. So Brigham Young wanted an army now. He wanted to populate the West first. And so that was part of his master plan, is to convert people to him, thinking that it was for Joseph. And then once they got rid of Joseph, he then fled the country and then wasn't able to build his kingdom because of Mexico seceding. And so then he brought in the rest of the Mormons through the handcart companies, the pioneer treks. And so in 1852, as they began to arrive, he then came out and said, Adam is our Heavenly Father, and he was a polygamist. And Jesus is a polygamist. And all of you, in order to go to the highest degree of the celestial kingdom, must be a polygamist. You cannot have one wife and get into the celestial kingdom. Can't be done. That was Brigham, not Joseph. And so this practice of section 119 with polygamy is now sex trafficking and prostitution. You are having to pay to have sex with the pimp's whores, prostitutes. Nobody else, just the pimp's prostitutes. And there are different ways of doing it. You know, you got the street corner prostitutes. You give them the money. The prostitute is then supposed to go back and give it all to the John, the pimp, and he then gives her her cut, which is a very small percentage. And brothels in the Wild West. You go to the brothel, you pay the madam, and she assigns you to a room with the prostitute, or more if you can afford it. And of course they'd have baths there that you can take a bath before and all that stuff. But it wasn't just for sex. There was other things to do at the brothels. You have the bar so you can drink. They had tables where you gambled. And they had a piano so that you can do karaoke. Selena Gomez. We'll see if that will be the theme song in the description below. Her music video version. And so, yeah, the Pony Express, likewise, would stay there. Men, it is not good for men to be alone. Women don't understand this because they're not men. And prostitutes are probably the ones who know men the best, even though they only know men for when they're horny, when it's that time of the minute. Nevertheless. And so, with Brigham Young setting up polygamy, all of the women are already taken by his Danites, his loyalists, his leaders. And so the new Mormons coming in, being told, hey, you got to practice polygamy in order to be celestialized, they're going, well, there aren't enough women to go around. And then they're told, well, go out on missions and convert your wives. And they say, well, your Danites are already doing that. And so, yes, polygamy is a problem when you don't have an unequal ratio of men to women to allow for polygamy. He doesn't care. This was the whole thing, is that prostitution. And so the more wives a man has, the more money he needs to make and give the tithing back to the church for. That's why the church in this valley, especially, hates the poor, because they're not giving enough tithing to the church. And so you have bishops who refuse to give aid to the poor and the needy, demanding that they work for it, demand that they look for a job, and they have to look for a high-paying job. And the family proclamation has now been thrown in to attack men who are incapable of getting a high-paid salary job to pay for a wife and numerous kids and etc. You are discriminated against in this church for being poor, because you're not giving more money in tithing. And that's the whole point of this church, is to use prostitution for their source of income. Just like a brothel. And the temples, therefore, are houses of sin, dens of iniquity. brothels of the Lord. And Mormons deny that that is the exact pattern match. And it's somewhat different because tithing is also for other criminal activities as well, not just prostitution and sex trafficking. And so Mormons then think that it's not connected to the brothels that Brigham Young set up to handle those Mormons who are without a woman. Because it is not good for men to be alone, women. But I don't like you. So, yeah, very sad. Okay, so that's the brothel thing. So back to the Exodus. But yeah, the Exodus has to do with the fall of the great and abominable church that is practicing this abomination of desolation, which the Jews named from the Greek practice when they took over the Jerusalem temple. They tore down the Jerusalem temple's altar and rebuilt it in 10 days and began offering the Greek ritual sacrifices on it, and began prostituting women in the Jerusalem temple. And so the Maccabean revolt resulted in taking back the Jerusalem temple, and then Hanukkah is the miracle of Hanukkah with the 8 days, rededicating the temple back to the Jewish Christ, the Jewish God, from Deuteronomy 18 verse 15. And so that concept is used by Jewish authors during the Roman period of time who wrote our scriptures, including the one about Abraham sacrificing Isaac. That was written after it occurred. He already knew about it. And so there could be some debate. I mean, maybe it could be before, but when you have scholars who use a preconceived bias, they tend not to want to follow the logical Socratic methodology for theory development. And with carbon dating, it gives you a range of time rather than a specific day and hour. And so when you have a preconceived bias of the one performing the carbon dating, they tend to favor what they want it to be for the specific time. And so oftentimes you'll hear the scriptures of the Qumran community being from 300 BCE to 300 CE. No. And so it could be that Genesis was written BCE, but it's clear that it's in the Roman period of time because of the exclusive creations of Roman practices that are found within the text of Genesis. Sodom and Gomorrah, for example. The men wanting to have the messengers worship in the temple. It's not homosexuality. Nevertheless. And so you see these patterns of sex and prostitution and raping that all tie in to this abomination of desolation with the temple of the Greeks and their practice that they began. And I've gone over the de-evolution of sexual relations over time as well. And so the great and abominable church is prophesied to be using this practice. Sure enough, Brigham Young is. Exact same pattern match. And so it's sad that Mormons are defending this criminal operation of sin and wickedness and corruption to claim that it's righteous, threatening me to deny the truth, to accept sin and wickedness as my Lord and Savior. That's an awesome title. Sin and wickedness as your Lord and Savior. Okay, and so thus an exodus is needed. Section 103. The redemption of Zion. This is Joseph Smith talking about the future redemption of Zion, which means he knows his church is going to be taken over and corrupted, just like the Greeks did to the Jews in the Jerusalem temple. Mormons want to disconnect. They want to say that Joseph restored and redeemed Zion and was murdered, but then Brigham Young. No. Brigham Young is the enemy. 19 July 1840. It's on Academia. I scripture formatted it for you. It's free. You don't have to pay for anything. You can download it or you can bookmark it, as one person did last I saw, or just read it. But for Mormons not to want Joseph Smith's scriptures in their possession, to have it available for them whenever, because if Academia were to collapse because they just don't get the funding to keep it running, all of my stuff is gone on Academia. And so you don't have a hard copy to access. And so I don't think our generation takes that seriously enough. When I was freed from bondage and obtained a computer again, I was hearing all this stuff about computer apps and clouds then came, and I'm going, am I able to obtain a digital hard copy? Yeah. No, not cloud. Have it on my computer? Yeah. No, not cloud. I need to be able to transfer the file from my computer to a USB drive. Oh, no. But I don't want it. So that's what all the streaming services are all about. They don't allow you to obtain your own copy. Like selling of DVDs and VHS tapes. They're taking us away from that. And it's setting us up for a complete destruction of the records of the people. It's all going to be gone when everything hits the fan. And so that's why the need to preserve a history of the people is that when the destruction hits and all of the cloud streams are gone, there will still be access to the actual knowledge that's going on. So, Joseph Smith knew that his church would be insurrected and that it would need to be redeemed. And this was left out of the Doctrine and Covenants. The redemption of Zion must needs come by power. And it's sad. This is a prophecy of Joseph Smith. And it has come to pass. Almost. We're still waiting for the Exodus. But the guy showed. Therefore, I will raise up. They do not reference Deuteronomy 18, verse 15. The Jewish Christ. Unto Mormons, not the Jews. The Jewish Christ is a Mormon. Right there, verse 16, section 103. Joseph Smith's second vision, verse 40, confirms he's your Christ. Because Joseph Smith puts in, he's Christ. Deuteronomy 18, verse 15, is our Christ. That's the Jewish Christ. It's not Jesus. Jesus is not the Jewish Christ. But Jesus was a Jew. No, he wasn't. First creed of Christianity created Jesus and put him into the Jewish documents of the character named Jesus by the Jewish author, who was talking about a man like Moses instead, the Jewish Christ. A man who shall lead them like as Moses. And they will not reference it to Deuteronomy 18:15, because they don't want you to know. And so instead, when it gets down to 22, therefore let my servant Joseph Smith Jr. say, or actually 21, verily, verily, I say unto you that my servant Joseph Smith Jr. is the man whom I likened unto the servant to whom the Lord of the vineyard spake in the parable in which I gave unto you in section 101, 19 July 1840 also. They say that Joseph Smith is the man who shall lead Mormons like as Moses. And they will reference section 107, verse 91 and 92 to prove it. It's not Joseph. Because the learning of the Jews is 2 Nephi chapter 3, verse 5. Joseph Smith Jr. is Messiah ben Joseph, who prepares the way for the coming of Messiah ben David of Deuteronomy 18:15. But Messiah ben Joseph is going to be murdered, and his religion order is insurrected, usurped, and thus the need for Messiah ben David to restore it. That's the Jews. And here it is in the Book of Mormon, and then the Doctrine and Covenants, and the church still lies to you. And yeah, it's partly because the seminary instructors who did this original batch of footnoting were ignorant on the scriptures. They only knew what the church tells them to read. Even though for the 1971 version, they didn't really have a set curriculum for the students. Benson was the first one to set up an order for the 4 rotating years. And technically Kimball, because my first year in seminary was Old Testament. But Benson played a part in that, being in the first presidency under Kimball. And so, yeah, you know, the priesthood manuals in the 50s, 60s, 70s were by Hugh Nibley. But anyway, and so yes, a lot of the older generations, who are the majority of my viewers, have been taught by Hugh Nibley, whether they knew it or not. So he's not an expert in Mormonism, but he was used by the church to provide lessons for priesthood, and they let women do whatever they wanted. But now, I'm not sure, it was most likely maybe Benson starting into the process that we now have it today. Because under Nelson, it's now the come follow me for everything. It's the same manuals all the way through. CES will have their different manuals, but come follow me is the standard teaching now. And dear God, he takes away an hour of church so that Sunday school and Priesthood Relief Society are switched off, and he expects you to study at home, and no Mormon will. and so not only are you missing out on lessons when you just sit in the classroom, play on your phone while the teacher talks, and occasionally words will get through, like wickedness, sin, and other words don't, righteousness, be good. I learned through osmosis, so I can be working on my phone with Minecraft. Or first-person shooter games. And I learn it all. I hear it all. Trust me, dear. I'm listening. So sad. Too many divorces in this church. What's forever for? I went to his concert at Abravanel Hall, and he didn't even sing that song. It was for my birthday, and he didn't even sing my favorite song of his. So sad. Plus, I went alone. That was also sad. But I never did get to do the Mozart concert that they held every year. I always wanted to attend that. Oh well. But, yeah, if we can build Zion and New Jerusalem, we'll have those. It would be New Jerusalem that would have it. As I went over the Isaiah passage and learned that Zion would be the apartments, and then New Jerusalem would be all of the educational places and thus the arts as well, so that performances can be held over there. And then there would be a storehouse, which I'm still wondering if the city would be big enough for the storehouse at the core, because there's lots of other stuff that needs to be involved. But there does need to be a storehouse within each of the city's residences, so that they can get their needs and wants immediately obtained upon request, rather than having transportation time delays. Anyway, I digress. Talking about the future stuff, that we haven't even had a fall of the Great and Abominable Church yet. fall, then the transfer, then the Exodus, then build Zion. It's got to be in that order. And so that's why I'm very curious, because of an Exodus. In order to be a man like Moses, he has to be a man like Moses. And Moses has the Exodus author who gives us the Exodus of Moses, which is prophecy and revelation. And so, yeah, in 2020, everything happened in accordance with prophecy, in accordance with the signs in the heaven called revelation. Everything happened. And I didn't know. I just had found out that the church had paid to have me murdered. All 15 signed the check and had given the order to have me assassinated back in 2008, which I was locked up for 6 years of my life. Prophecy of Joseph of Egypt. Wrongfully accused, locked up in prison. And then dreams in prison. Ta-da! A Hinckley dream, 77 and 88. Amazing. Plus the 215s and the Irene dream of 9/11. So thus Purim, for the saving of the Jews of Esther, and Deuteronomy 19 for false accusers, getting the punishment that they would give to the falsely accused. And so thus Laban tells Joseph and his brothers, "You are trying to rob me. I will murder you. Get back here. Submit to death. Don't run. Only the guilty run." Every criminal says they're innocent. And so thus, because he falsely accused them and issued the punishment of death, thus Nephi is able to justifiably, according to the law of Moses, take the life of Laban in order to obtain the plates. It doesn't talk about it, but social to memory, it does. It's just Joseph Smith Sr. forgot to put it in. And so, yeah, I sued the church. I had to. Again, the pressure was coming because of my YouTube videos. I did the one that showed that I'm a seer, prophet, revelator, and translator. That now, still to this day, because YouTube shut it down, has 39 point blah 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 thousand views. My #1 video. YouTube will not allow any other video to get that high. And there are times for conference, for example, that they just hang their head down and sigh and wait for the church to assassinate them and replace them with somebody else who will be more faithful next time. As I can maybe get over 1,000, but I don't think 5,000. I guess we can check. I'm not being cyber terrorized this morning, I see. See, the breaking LDS Church news, they had to shut that down because there was a rush right at the beginning of when it got posted. So, popular. Yeah, the second one was my one from last year. They made some boo-boos because I was able to free myself from my latest bondage of the church. And so the President Russell Marion Nelson to announce national divorce for LDS April 2023 General Conference. We have moved Adam on Diamond. And so most Mormons don't understand my videos. They aren't watching, they're new. So they don't understand what I mean from the picture meme, from the title, from the content. They know it from how they understand it and have been led to believe. So Adam on Diamond, they believe, oh wow, yeah, that's where Jesus is coming to coup the government and mass murder people afterwards. Mormons don't think it like that. They don't understand that that's what it means. Jesus' second coming, mass murder, and coup of governments. Mormons don't think that way. They don't think criminal. The church tells them it's Jesus, so they believe it's righteous. There's righteous anger. That kind of thing. That's how holy wars get started. So yeah, 6.7K was the most that I was able to get. And so then you see 5 years ago, 5.8K. 1 year ago, another one for conference. LDS Church to announce millennial name change. And see, I just got the apartment in February. Again, from a dream. And so, yes, my being here was put on high alert as the church was upset and fired the 2 girls that failed to keep me incarcerated. And then 6 years, 3 years, 6 years, 6 years, 6 years, 9 months, 1 year, and we're down to 3,000K, or 3,000 video views. 1 year, 11 months, 1 year, 6 years, coming days. I was doing it before all of you. And so on TWG, gonna scroll down to the bottom here. Sorry, this channel no longer exists. And it's flashing. Dear God, YouTube sucks. So yeah, 2 years ago was my last video on this, and it only had 289 views. Mormon of Latter-day Prophecy to save unbelieving Mormons. Nobody cares. The Dark Ages. That was brilliant. The Dark Ages of Mormonism. Only 155 views 2 years ago. And so if you comment on those videos, yeah, YouTube's just going to delete them after 60 days. Don't bother trying to communicate with me on that one. Ooh, wow, I was able to get one at 8.2K. Breaking LDS news, Russell M. Nelson changes temple covenants again 4 years ago. And then a list in order of all LDS Mormon Church latter days signs in heaven. And it needs to be updated because it was 4 years ago. His official statement on tithing was only 3 years ago, 2.5K. Number 10, thus prostitution. And so, yeah, lost scriptures found in the Salt Lake Temple time capsule. Again, Mormons were thinking one way. Because they did. They found scriptures inside of the time capsule. But it wasn't new scripture. You put in new, not me. And then Putin bombs close to the LDS Kiev temple. And there's my DNA of Somalia. My DNA, LDS family tree, includes Somali. And the 4.6K, those were Somalis. No regular person was watching that video. It's just a certain number of Somalis who have ties to other Somalis, and thus my video was recommended to them. And so I was able to get 4.6K 3 years ago for that. We are a happy family. And I still had people try to deny my DNA evidence. You were probably one of the whites who came in and held Somalis hostage. No, we were never hostages. They're fighting back and forth among each other about their own history. No, guys, I'm one of you, pre-white man in Somali. It's through the West African slave girl on the North Carolina plantation, through which that family comes from. But anyway, and so yeah, Moses has suing Pharaoh, demonstrating his authority over Pharaoh. There's a drought, there's 3 days of darkness, there's falling stars, creeping death, parting the waters. All of this is part of the Exodus. And I did it all. And I did it my way. And so, yeah, with Oaks, I don't know if anybody noticed that on the picture that I did yesterday, I think. On this picture. In which Oaks claimed 2020 was just going to be the test run for 2024 and 2025. And I don't know if people understand what that means in the bigger picture. I mean, not just that, you know, he's the mastermind behind the overthrow of the government, but in scriptural prophetic terms, 2020 was also to let Mormons know, hey, I'm your Christ. And so when 2024 and 2025 comes along, this is going to be it. I was so distraught that it wasn't it in 2020. And they almost got rid of me. But yeah, Green River. I parted it. So yeah, it was cool to go back memory lane with all of the thumbnail pictures that I had created. And so this is why I'm now again hopeful, because I couldn't figure out how 15s from the Iron Dream would fit. Now I do. And it has to do with the final Exodus. Purim ends on the 15th. And there's the lunar eclipse on Purim. You have the Passover Exodus. And those of you who have been following my countdowns last year for tabernacles, I was thinking those might be 15s. But, again, Nelson failed. He failed to finish the Salt Lake Temple for both conferences. And so for the October conference, he had to finally come out and confess. Yeah, it won't be until the anniversary of the Illuminati in the tricentennial. It's 300 years, isn't it? 1770s, yeah. No, 250 years. Jumping ahead. 250 years from the formation of the Illuminati. 2026. Trump also is going to have a celebration to celebrate the Illuminati. And that's their whole plan. Destroy America, have the New World Order under the Illuminati. Albert Pike. That's their intention, that's their plan. And we're told from scripture prophecy it ain't going to happen. But, and so the 15th is also the third day of Passover. Third day of Purim, third day of Passover. Just brilliant. And so, yeah, this is what we're waiting for. Sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood. In its connection as well. And so, yeah, 15th. Interesting. So anyway, I'm starting to doze off in memory lane here. I was woken up in the early because of the wind that was blowing in a storm for today, tomorrow, and the next day, apparently. But yeah, I still, I run the tests. Things that don't happen, I have to dismiss. So Joseph Smith translation, Revelation 12:4, yes, it was fulfilled with both Hanukkah and the quadranted meteor showers at the same time, but I can't go beyond that because Nelson didn't die like Monson did back in 2018 for the regular Revelation 12:3 and 4. Let's see. So let's go over the events. So yeah, Nelson's death threat, which is now 106 days away, coming on Easter after the conclusion of Passover. As I told you in the video yesterday, Oaks is threatening to murder us on this day from the Book of Mormon, 3rd Nephi, chapter 1, verse 9. So, and Passover is in the book of Matthew and Mark and Luke and John, but so Christians, by imposing the first creed upon it, destroys it, and so they call it Passion Week. But the Jews do not understand it as occurring in 1 week. Moses took years to perform the full Exodus, and they are using their preconceived Christian imposed bias on their own scriptures. Elohim, it is not a plural majesty. That's Trinity. That's why Elohim is translated as singular. They knew they shouldn't have trusted Christians, and yet. But yeah, they believe that the Septuagint was by Jews, as Christians told them, and they fell for it. Ha ha! We're turning you Christian, we're turning you Christian. And so, it starts off with the burning bush, the first vision. Lehi has his first vision. Joseph Smith has his first vision. I had my first vision. That was the February one before the Elko book signing under Revelation chapter 12. As Nelson, who would be the prophet of the latter days, the false prophet, likewise was involved in the Family Discovery Day, but here in Salt Lake, where Revelation says he would be safe. I went into the storm. That was cool. I was a little concerned for the driver who was going very fast with no visibility. I'm just gonna sit here, trust in the Lord. I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna die. And so, yes, again, Moses, where does he go? To Utah, top of the mountain, start his ministry. See the pattern? The Jews are talking about the same prophecies. And so the Mormon will start his ministry in Utah, because it's two Mormons. And so everything else has to do with Mormons and in the United States as the location. It is not Jerusalem. It is not Egypt. It's not Mount Sinai. It is not Mount Ararat. It's Utah. And this is difficult for people who are in denial that Christianity is abominable, all wrong and corrupt. Verse 19 of the first vision. You got to trust Joseph. He knows what he's talking about. And so, despite the claim here of having a time frame late in the year for the burning bush, early in the year for the initial plagues, after going before Pharaoh's court, and Pharaoh saying, no, we will not let Mormons go, but we'll now sick the Strengthening Church Members Committee on you, and they'll report to me on what you're up to, what videos you're exposing us with, and then order the Mormon at YouTube to shut you down. And so, yeah, those early plagues, they don't talk about, they don't. There's authority that was debated. The whole serpent staff thing. Yeah, that's for authority. That's not an actual event that took place. Sticks don't turn into snakes. But the symbolism behind snakes, specifically cobras, when you play music for them, they get erect. There's a reason for that. And yes, women, it is about phallic symbolism. For a reason. That's why the Jews are using those in their prophecies and revelations. Joseph Smith erected the order. That is the authority for the Mormon. He can't claim Christian authority, Islamic authority. He has to claim Mormon authority for the transfer to occur after the fall of the great and abominable church. And that's what I've been doing for you the whole time. Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are true as Jewish. I am the fulfillment of the man like Moses, the seer, the prophet, the revelator, the translator of Paleo, Hebrew, and Egyptian. It's me. It's blatantly obvious it's me. Run the test. Mormons won't do it. They won't run the test on Nelson or any of the others who claim the titles, except for translator. Mormons put in translator. And so the other plagues, outside of, after demonstrating his authority, because the river of Nile turning red, yeah, that's the inundation. That's Genesis chapter 1. That's authority. The birth of Moses. All authority stuff. But the lice, the flies, the cattle, drought and stuff like that, yeah, those are the plagues. And those were what happened in 2020. We had those Mormon crickets. That's my audience. Okay, and so then creeping death. Did it happen? Yeah. The news were interviewing Jewish rabbis for that first Passover. And they were talking about being reminded of the Exodus story that was literal history true, not a prophecy of their Christ who is here. They just had the wrong religion. And so the part of the creeping death, murdering the firstborn of Pharaoh, is the fall of the great and abominable church. That was the structure. It's lineal descent from father to son for the kingdom, for the dynasty. And for the Egyptians, for a pharaoh to no longer have a male heir to take the throne is the end of the dynasty. And then you have another vizier who can rise up to take over the throne with a new dynasty. And thus the Seti Ramsed dynasty of the 19th dynasty for the 18th dynasty of the Ra Moseses. Or not the Ra, it was Ra Moses for 19. The David Moseses for the 18th. The Mose. And then Ra Moses for the 19th. And they embraced Set as their god, the one who murdered Osiris. And so they stuck to the symbolism, even though it showed that they're the bad guys. Nevertheless, and notwithstanding, and so the Jews are talking about the restoration of the 18th dynasty in their scriptures, but using it in the context of the future of Joseph Smith and his religion. And it never would have happened if it hadn't been for 9/11/1826. But that's how the transfer happened. So, and then parting of the sea, that's the same thing as the rivers of the Nile turning red. It floods the valley so that the sky waters look like the the lower waters. It's difficult to distinguish the two apart until the water then settles and the dry land appears, rises up, and then you can see the separation. Genesis chapter 1. The Heliopolis creation glyph, which is the Paleo-Hebrew letter Zeta in Greek, because it's not Yah. That's when Babylon took Jews hostage into Babylon, into the captivity, and altered the phonetics of the language. So it's actually Semitic Hebrew, Yod. So then the rest of this is different Exodus stories. You have arriving in Sinai. That's completely different. But again, Moses goes to the top of the mountain, as he is the lawgiver. And Aaron now is the false prophet who leads the Mormons astray with the golden Book of Mormon cow from 1 Nephi 28, is it? When they get into the promised land and they're cows. It's not literal history. There are cows in America right now, prophecy fulfilled. And yeah, if the transfer of authority happens, all of the cattle of the church becomes our property, and we will bring them to Zion. There will be beef tonight. Not just lamb. I don't think the church has lamb ranching. Just cattle, I think. They don't have it in the welfare square, no lamb. But Rick's, they had veal. That's baby lamb, isn't it? That was my first time having veal. I'd never had veal before. When I was having dinner with Leanne Murdoch, my one and only regret in life, we would have been married in the Salt Lake Temple. I still wonder what room it would have been, because I don't think they would have had me assigned to room number 13, and it would have been on May 1st, the anniversary of the Illuminati. And then because of being married to her, I would be elevated instantly into the quorum of the 70, and then rise up to become an apostle, and then stir up controversy. The fall of the church would have happened that way. But I did a stupid thing and settled for Stephanie. She took me to Canada, deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. She left me. LDS Church Lamb Ranching. Summer of the Lambs? All we wanted to do was save our lambs. The hardest part of seeing them die. Every morning we would find 5, 7, 10 lambs that had died during the night. LDS Church's Northern Utah Ranch is proving to be a model. Livestock. We do. Ooh. Oh, it's Salt Lake Tribune. They're going to say, you have to subscribe before you can read this. Deseret Land and Livestock Ranch, owned by the church, 2,000 acres along the Wyoming border. Stop with all these advertisings, which are supposed to make it free for me to watch. I still haven't, it's still buffering, but it's got a lot of pop-up ads showing up all over the place. Come on, give me a listing of what you got on the ranch. Venue for grazing, hunting, primarily. Solar dollars. Acquired it from Hong Kong in 1983. Why is Hong Kong owning Utah land? It's a good thing the legislature passed the law saying China can't own any more Utah land. Wanting a list. Elks. We've got elk meat. Cool. Here we go. Along with pronghorn, mule deer, moose, according to the ranch's YouTube video. Ranch has a YouTube video? Fish and birds. So yeah, Utah Division of Wildlife Management is involved, but 90 deer, 110 elk, 40 pronghorn, 4 moose tags. So all of that is ours, huh? It doesn't belong to the church. All of this was paid for by prostitution money. You do understand that, right? If the church is making money through prostitution, everything they purchase is from your prostitution money. Thus it's yours. It was obtained illegally. Prostitution's illegal. And there's supposed to be a religion, not a prostitution pimp daddy Nelson stuff. So, no, I don't see sheep. Don't see sheep. The way we're making our money is making beef and growing elk, deer, and pronghorn. So, apparently cows for the beef. Deer jerky. Gotta use the right sauce to make the deer jerky. But somebody in Utah knows how to do it right. Just need to make sure he's righteous enough to come to Zion to share the recipe so that all may partake of the deer jerky. So I don't see lambs. Too bad. So sad. So yeah, they repeat the Exodus pattern here, the latter-day pattern with the different stories, and they combine them all together as if it were a narrative. And then Christians came in and said, oh, it's all literal history, that's why it's all a narrative. Supernatural stuff, because Jesus is not real. Science is wrong, we need to change science. So we need to have the 10 Commandments in the classrooms to teach the Christian Jesus, not the Jewish Jesus. Dear God, the 10 Commandments doesn't even say Jesus. It's the Jewish Christ. And yet Christians are illiterate. Oh, God. So now the golden calf and orgies, the prostitution. It was the Jewish author who wrote about the orgy sex of the house of Israel with the golden calf of Aaron. That's what it's all about. A different ritual of sacrifices, like the Greeks, the abomination of desolation, and then you have the sex orgies, and that's the Baccharin orgies of Dionysus that is involved in that. But same thing, sex perversions of the great and abominable church of Aaron. And so Moses is there in Utah to say, Mormons, stop it. Aaron is making his money off of your sex. Stop it. So then you have the temple being erected. That's the restoration, the resurrection of the original order, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I can keep on going, but I think that's good enough for now. So yeah, you'll notice at the beginning of the video, which now I'm explaining, the church funds terrorism. It's a pattern of practice. They use your prostitution money to fund terrorist activities, to betray you as the Judas price. And so, you know, last night as I was in bed, I wrote it down, and so this morning I got all of the clips that I needed, because that's what I do. Associative memory, combining it all together. And so yeah, with Russia, China, Palestine, even the New Orleans attack by a guy who was recruited by ISIS through the internet. Church funds ISIS through Saudi Arabia and the Princess Ambassador, as well as through Qatar, the meeting that they held in Qatar last year. The church was meeting with those to plan and orchestrate the coming attacks of ISIS in America. And that's why the church was hoping for the George Albert Smith prophecy of New Year's attacks in America by ISIS. But because it was just the one guy and it wasn't big enough to overthrow the government, therefore Oakes then came out the next day and said, it's now been pushed to Plan C. Easter is now when we're getting you. And so, thus the Book of Mormon of 3rd Nephi chapter 1 verse 9, a day was set apart to murder the believers. So, yeah, it's sad that too many people that come to my videos don't know of this ability of mine to put everything together, just like drugged up psycho Mel Gibson in the movie Conspiracy Theory. With almost had her name, Julia. She was the runaway bride. So finally, Handmaid's Tale is figuring things out better for the main actress, because she was frustrating me to no end. They warn her not to do something, she does it. And then people get punished. Julia Roberts. I was right there. Yeah, right there. Almost had it. Almost had it. Okay, so that's what we're looking at for this year. This is the church's plot. I already know all of it. And it's just too vast. I mean, this video is an hour and 45 minutes. And there's repeats in here, and there's an incomplete amount of information for you. That's the problem, is that this whole latter days is going to fill volumes of books for everything that's involved. And I'm backlogged on just catching up for the last 3 months. For the next 3 months, as this is part of that, because Purim and Passover This is part of what I need to talk to you about, to get you to understand. You need to know the church is evil. They're stealing from you by committing crimes against you and getting you to commit crimes. And they're using that money to fund terrorism so that they get their kingdom back. And it's sad that there are Mormons who are okay with this and will defend the church even to bloodshed and cyber terrorism and other crimes to make sure that the church gets it. And they don't care if they die in the process, because they believe they're going to the celestial kingdom with only 10 child bride virgins rather than 72. Just so sick and wrong. So, yeah, with the little video clips at the beginning, this is likely to be over 2 hours.